Hi, welcome back. Okay, so now I would like to briefly take a look at what we call the serial comma. But before we do, let me present you with a little exercise here. Pause the video and see if you can determine where to put a comma or commas in the following sentence. Okay, so I'm assuming that you've taken a crack at it, and given what we've talked about before, you can see that, or you may see that the first place we'll need a comma is to separate the dependent sort of introductory clause here, or phrase, because it was raining, from the rest of the sentence. So I have an independent clause here. I decided to drive to the store. So I start with a dependent clause. This could not function as an individual sentence. It wouldn't make sense that way. And you may notice that the last phrase also is a dependent clause. So I'll just label that DC. And the middle phrase is the independent clause, IC. Okay, so we'll need to separate these clauses from one another using commas. So the commas will go here. We need one right there. Because it was raining, pause, I decided to drive to the store. To drive to the store, not take my bike. So there should be a comma there, and there should be a comma right here. If that's what you guessed, well done. Now, let's move on and talk about the serial comma. I don't see mistakes with serial commas very often. I think it's pretty easy to use them. These are just when we use commas to separate items in a list, for example. The list red, white, and blue. I've made a mistake here, right? Where would I need to put another comma? Well, I would need to put it right here. So, separating items in a list. Dogs, cats, and, I don't know, cows. Okay, but let's say you have something like the name of a company. Okay, so maybe the name of a law firm or something like, I don't know, let me use my name here, Boyer, Miller, and Co., or something like that. Maybe we'll use an and sign like this. Okay, in such a case, it's perfectly acceptable and conventional to just have the one comma. In other words, I don't need a comma here. Okay, because this is the name of a firm. If I have another name, maybe I don't use the and symbol. Maybe I just use words. So how about Little Brown and Company. So if this is the name of a company or a firm or something, again, it's okay to just have the one comma, and we don't need the second comma there. That comma is not needed. So if we're talking about names of companies, it's okay to use this sort of format. Now, we also use commas to separate out parts of sentences that we call parentheticals, or parenthetical phrases. Now, in the example that I gave you a little bit earlier, this could be considered a parenthetical phrase here. But often parentheticals occur in the middle of a sentence, and sometimes it could be a single word, like the word however. So I might have a sentence like, I was hungry, however, I did not get a chance to eat. And sometimes it can be difficult to know when to use the comma to separate this parenthetical word, however, from the rest of the sentence. Strunk and White give us a pretty decent rule of thumb here that's not too formal. And they do so by saying that if the interruption to the flow of the sentence is just slight, then you don't really want to use a comma. But if the interruption is more of a pause in the natural reading of the sentence when you read it out loud, then it's safe to use a comma. So when I read this, I was hungry, however, I did not get a chance to eat. The second part of the sentence does reflect, to me, a shift in tone and message that's a little dramatic from the first part of the sentence. It's a change. It's a big change. I'm saying I was hungry, but I wasn't able to satisfy that. And the word however separates these two very different statements, these two very different messages. To me, it seems that the pause here is significant enough to merit a comma. So I would definitely put a comma, but it really should be 2 commas. I was hungry, however, I did not get a chance to eat. So we have 2 independent clauses separated by the parenthetical however, and we mark that off using 2 commas. Now, regardless of whether the so-called pause in the sentence or the interruption is slight or not slight, this sort of there are some kinds of punctuation that are never acceptable, like this, for instance. That's just awkward and weird. It's not a place to put a comma, so don't do that. Here, I was hungry, however, I did not get a chance. That's still pretty bad. Maybe not as bad as the first error, but I would not do that either. To be on the safe side, I would either omit the commas entirely, or if I felt like it was justified, I would put 2 commas to separate the parenthetical phrase. I think we'll do some more examples of parentheticals since they can be a little bit complicated in the next video. So I'll see you there.